Hello, we are here today with Garry Jacobs, who is the CEO and president of the World Academy of Art and Science, and also one of our partners in the post-pandemic world project. And since the project, which has been lasting for almost 2 years now, it's 1 year and several months, is now approaching its end, we are looking forward to the actual post-pandemic world. And I'm here to ask Garry, thank you for agreeing to interview us, to help us with the interview, actually. I'm here to ask you, how do you feel that the post-pandemic world will be like?
That's a wonderful question, a challenging question. We have definitely, the world has changed in intangible ways. The whole world has been sensitized to the fact that we are much more closely related and interdependent than we were aware before. We've been told by the scientists, by the leaders, that climate change is an issue of critical importance to the whole world. But there's always been a feeling that, well, climate change is something a little down the line. It's not here now. It's for the next generation, maybe. So it's not so real. But COVID has made real the challenge of interdependence in a global society, and the fact that we cannot wait. We need each other. We need the multilateral institutions without which we don't have effective communication and coordination with each other. And we need much stronger institutions than we have had up until now. And I think this has already had some salutary effect on the action on climate. We're certainly not satisfied with the action we're getting on climate, but I think there are many signs in the redirecting of money from the financial institutions. We did a study, we've been supporting a study on what the banks should do, the private sector should do to reinforce this. There's a change in attitude of major corporations. There's a change of attitude of the pension funds and the insurance companies, of the shareholders in the major corporations and so forth. All of it not sufficient for us, not sufficient for the need, but there's an awakening. So the world is different because of that. You know, online learning became a reality, a potentiality 10 years ago or 8 years ago. But the university community remained pretty much fixed in their existing pattern. COVID forced the issue, and overnight, literally in a matter of months, forced the whole higher educational system in the world to open up to the possibilities and potentialities of distance learning in a way that was just creeping along until then. So like this, I'm illustrating, I think there's no doubt that the world is different than it was. But also something else has happened at the same time. Our awareness of the challenges has grown. And you know, the more conscious we become of ourselves, the more aware we become of how much work there is to do. So as much as we may have changed, we may feel further behind than before. It's a perception. It's a common perception. So I think in reality there has been real irreversible changes and much discontent, not because we're worse than before or less conscious than before, but we're more conscious of how much more we need, of how much more synergy, collaboration we need in order to really address these challenges. In that sense, COVID has done a service to humanity. It's a wake-up call, as we say.
Thank you. I know that you have been very active in the past years on one of the major projects of the Academy, which deals with global leadership in the 21st century. You mentioned multilateralism earlier, and I know that you have been organizing the anniversary of the World Academy this year was at
60
years of existence, yes. And from that perspective, I wanted to ask you, given that you've been tackling with multilateralism and leadership, which are the lessons that you feel that have not been yet learned from this pandemic? Because we've learned a lot, as you said, on education, economics, global changes, climate changes, and so on. It's been a wake-up call. But some of the lessons have not been yet learned. Which are these, in your opinion?
Maybe it would be, from my view, maybe it would be more accurate to say none of the lessons have been fully learned.
Okay.
Some of the lessons have been partially learned, but we have a great deal still to learn about the future, to address the issues in the future. And I was very happy that the Institute could organize a very important session at our conference with the UN, Geneva, in December, and at our 60th anniversary celebrations for the Academy on the impact of COVID and the future that it will bring. That's a really important part of the discussion, not just for coping with COVID, but for living together in the future, because the lessons we get from this project are relevant to all the projects. So in my list of things that we have not sufficiently learned, the first would have to be the importance of the multilateral system. There's no doubt that there's a much greater awareness. And the public in the UN 75 anniversary celebrations and the surveys they did showed that the UN is rising higher and higher as the view of national governments and business and other things is going lower in the trust of the world's people. But that the public, the general awareness is there, but we need to do much more to raise it and to strengthen this institution. The difficulty for the multilateral system is it cannot change just from inside, because the member states are the owners of this. It's their system, and they define what it is. The real change we need now is at the level of global society. We need to reach out, awaken, and mobilize the global public to realize their voice really matters. It counts. And they need to speak up for this system, because it's not just a multilateral system, it's the closest we have to humanity's system for human welfare and human security. And so we need to find ways not just to negotiate at the at the nation state level and in the General Assembly and Security Council. We need to find ways to reach out, harness the power and voice of global civil society, give it much more power. And when I say we, I would say global civil society needs to invent new ways to collaborate with one another. We've got 40,000 international NGOs today who are all dedicated to humanity in different ways, but largely working in isolation with each other. We have to mobilize this community who tries to think on behalf of humanity, whether it's in health or nuclear abolition or environmental issues or economy and poverty eradication and human rights. We've got to create a voice for that civil society. So this is one thing we still haven't. With the Academy, we're working on some initiatives to do that, but much more will need to be done. A second area, there has been a progress in education, and I think higher education will never be the same. But compared to the need to provide accessible, affordable, quality education, higher education to all the youth, hundreds of millions of youth who will be looking in the future, we need not to replace the existing system, because I don't think it's realistic to do that and nor sensible, but we need a complementary system that will do what the existing system cannot do. Just like, as a parallel, the globe on Amazon.com doesn't replace all of the retail shops in the world. It's a complement that adds capacity and reach and services that the existing model cannot fully, and they coexist and complement each other. We need a complementary system. In fact, we have a conference which the Institute will be participating in December on the future of higher education and what change is needed to really address social issues. I can mention one other very important area. I think that COVID really demonstrates the idea that security is not just a question. When we talk about security, we're not just talking about defending the nation from foreign invasion. You know that the world spends $2 trillion a year on military expenditure.
Quite a lot.
And the whole UN system, with all of its agencies, 40 agencies in all, the total budget is only about 55 billion. 55 billion, 2 trillion. I think we've got our priorities mixed.
Indeed.
Today, we've already lost 5 million people through COVID in a couple of years, and the projections we heard yesterday are that it'll almost indefinitely, it will be another 5 million. Can you imagine which security issue have we had in the world since World War II, where we were talking about 5 million, 10 million is almost, it's a world war. It's
yes.
You know, and the resources that we need should be going into human security. National defense is an important issue in some areas, no doubt, until we become more civilized and developed. But what about food security and job security and health security and the rights of immigrants and the human right, gender equality? These are all human security. This is a human issue.
Indeed.
It's not just about territory or money. It's about human beings. And I think we need a shift, which we're now working with the UN on, to try to shift the focus and the debate on how do we maximize the human security of everybody on Earth. And that shift is yet to come. COVID has given us the occasion. It's given us an example to make clear our real security threats are an invisible microorganism we can't even see, not some enemy for which we're going to defend ourselves with weapons of mass destruction and all of this. So I think this is the next step for us.
Thank you. So it's multilateralism that needs to be developed, inclusiveness, bringing people together, creating networks, complementarity
in the education
and healthcare and anything.
And to rethink our whole approach, our whole priorities to really put the human being at the center of it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the interview.
Juana, and thanks for this wonderful project.
Well, thank you as well because you contributed. It's a joint effort and we've got joint results now. And looking forward to present them to you and the rest of the Academy.
The World Academy is so pleased to have the Institute as a center of excellence. And it's proving its value.
Thank you. We are also very happy to be part of the Academy and support it in all its projects. And we're glad to see that the Academy used this, just like we did, use this opportunity created by the crisis like the pandemic to advance its work and create even more space for discussion and actual implementation, because that's one of the issues that you mentioned. We need to have a hands-on approach, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.